What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We back with another sharp conversation with Hotep Jesus. I have a very, very, very special guest for you tonight. As you can see over here, we got the live stream going to Million Maga March. You guys see what's going on around the country. Before we get into today's talk, you know I gotta plug my companies. 4-time tech startup co-founder. Shout out to Maga and my peoples over at Coinbits app. Bitcoin hit over 16K this week. If you ain't get in, I don't know what y'all waiting for. Digital cryptocurrency is here. It's coming. Make sure y'all get in on that. Coinbitsapp.com. Link is in the description box below. Wazo AI, camera vision analytics, optimizing the retail and workspaces to make life safer. And to churn out a little bit more coin out of the people that frequent your establishment when COVID finally allows us to. Shout out to Simone over at Jivitas, empowering content creators. Allow you to download GIFs and videos directly from Twitter directly to your iPhone. Android version is still in the works. Shout out to our dev over in India. Last but not least, Bloom, working on deepfakes. Deepfakes, trying to put the Instagram influencer out of business. More on that coming soon. And of course, I'm the author of The Unbreakable Rules of Masculinity. Fellas, I know you're having ladies' problems, 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. Solve your problems right here in this document. You can get the digital version, physical version, in the link description box below, or briansharp.co. And of course, I wrote Dominate Twitter, the marketing guide that dumped my 20 years of marketing experience all into about 100 pages. There's no fluff. A lot of people write books and it's a lot of fluff. No fluff in that book. All gems, gem after gem after gem after gem. Make sure y'all go ahead and get yourselves a copy. But without further ado, I don't know what it is. I'm too black to know. I got the first president of Hotep Nation, our inaugural president, Jordan Heywood, here with me. Jordan, what's up, my brother? How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. How are you?
Fucking marvelous, man. Fucking marvelous. Thank you, Nikita. Appreciate that. So, Jordan, we're going to be talking tonight and breaking down what are the potential outcomes of this election. For everybody who doesn't know, whenever there's like something happening politically and I'm usually lost, Jordan is the guy I go to. He's my ghostwriter, so to speak. I'm like, Jordan, what's going on? Can you explain this shit to me? and he breaks it down. So Jordan, I'd like for you to just break down your experience in politics and why you're qualified to speak on this topic, because I know there's very few people that are as qualified to speak on this as you are. So tell us, what is your experience in politics?
Absolutely. I've been involved in political activism since before I could vote. I began in 2004 with the Bush re-election campaign. I've been a part of every Republican presidential election since then to some extent. From the moment I could vote, I registered with the Republican Party, and after that, I've served on the Perry County Executive Committee, the Dauphin County Campaign Committee. I interned with the Republican State Committee here in Pennsylvania. I was one of the founders and heavily involved in the Frederick Douglass Inclusion Council project, and I worked as a traveling pollster in 2016. I gathered information from voters for the purpose of creating ads, tailored specifically to voting populations. Got some good Koch brothers money from that too. And even my mentor in politics is the current county chair of the Perry County Committee. So I've been in politics, the nitty-gritty of actual work in politics my entire life, and especially local politics and the stuff that goes on the ground is where most of my experience lies.
So you're not a grifter. You're not one of these people who just grifting off politics on Twitter. You're actually putting in the real work.
Correct. The vast majority of what I do is for free.
Okay. Putting in that real work, the stuff that really makes these politics turn.
Correct.
I love it. So let me just answer this question real fast. Somebody asked, where's his face? Well, Jordan's a real person. He does not have a webcam, but we wanted to bring you this broadcast in high quality. So we're just going to do voice. And that's why I provided the visuals that you'll see right here of the live stream. So we're just going to bring you audio today. I hope you guys can accommodate us. Jordan, I love when people tell stories here. And I know you got a couple of political war stories that we can probably learn from. Are there any stories that happened maybe when you first began or recently that you can share with us to give us insight into how ugly or beautiful politics behind the scenes may be?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. As I spoke to you a little bit earlier, I told you about my mentor, who was the county chairman in Perry County, Pennsylvania. Well, this year, he was asked to run a woman's campaign, right? A free position to run the campaign.
Okay.
And part of it, and it's, of course, this is a first statewide campaign, so she doesn't know anything that she's doing. I'm serious, yeah. Near the end of things, we get to a point where it is revealed that she has been keeping him out of the loop. So she's not sharing information. She's basically off with her contractors getting milked for money. And that's a really big problem. The way that a lot of the counties are set up is we end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these contractors, and they don't produce very well. And that's one of the reasons that politics are so expensive, right? Because the money has to come from somewhere. When we have somebody like Tim DeFore, who I don't know how he won his election, he raised about $30,000 throughout his entire campaign. He didn't even have money for signs. So that's one of the big issues that we deal with, especially in local politics, is being broke and people not getting along, not sharing information. It's how 9/11 happened, right? Everybody's on a different page. The state committee's on a different page than the county committee, right? And the state committee's on a different page than the national committee. And then the candidates are prima donnas themselves. So
A lot of ego.
It's politics. It's show business for ugly people. It's all ego.
Okay. So you mentioned she hired some contractors. I'm not familiar with these contractors or what they are supposed to do. Can you fill me in and educate me on what these contractors are?
Okay. So for instance, making signs.
Okay.
Right. You take the money and you pay somebody to make your signs. And you have a deal to, let's say you want 500 yard signs. So you pay them and you say, we need these signs by X date, and they get the signs to you 2 weeks late. That's the kind of thing we deal with contractors. Or we deal with situations like one of the most recent fights that she had with the person running her campaign, since he's also the county committee. He'll say something like, hey, can you make an appearance at the spaghetti dinner? I'm expecting to have, 100 people there at the spaghetti dinner. They're paying their admittance, and all that money is going to be followed in the campaign. But I'd like you to actually show up to give these people something, right?
Right.
You make that commitment, and then you don't show up. That's the kind of petty shit that we deal with. As I'm talking about it, it sounds like really small, really like petty things, but these are the kind of things that cause the drama, especially when we're dealing with people who are almost all doing this for free.
Right.
You know what I mean? These are people putting 40, 60 hours of their time and their money into this, and they also have day jobs and families. Right. We can't all be Carl Rose. Some of us got to sit in a booth and make phone calls for 80 hours. right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, when you speak of these contractors, it reminds me of back when I was doing marketing for companies. I'd tell a guy, like, for example, I had a guy running a travel agency, and I'd tell him, hey, um, don't buy any advertising. Make sure anything you spend on the budget, you run through me first so I can authorize it's a smart spend. And he goes and he spends money, and then he on some private airline ad, and he's wondering why he didn't get an ROI on that spend. And I'm like, I could have told you print wouldn't work for your purposes. Right? Is it something like that?
Yeah, People just don't listen. They're hard at it.
They think they know what they're doing.
Correct. And the difference between running a state campaign and running a local campaign is something that seems to go over people's heads.
Okay, what's the difference?
All right, first of all, just the time you have to spend. The state of Pennsylvania, where I live, it's about 5 hours horizontally from one end to the other.
Okay.
But a local campaign, for instance, if you wanted to run for the state house seat where I live, it ain't but about 8 blocks. That's the whole size of the district, right? So that's 8 blocks or so around. You can run, and everybody will know you, right? The senator, it's a bigger area, but my state senator, I go to church with him.
Okay.
I know him on a personal level. These are people who are actually a part of the community.
Right.
Right. Andrew Lewis, who was currently a representative to the federal level. He's another person who I came up with over the years, right? I was part of his initial bid. So you form these relationships with people on a basis when they're local. When you move to a state campaign, you realize that the rest of the state doesn't know who you are.
It's much harder to cover that area.
So if you're that guy in Philly, you go to Pittsburgh, and even the committee doesn't know you. You don't have those connections. You don't have those relationships. You don't know where people are congregating. And we're not even talking about how much money you're spending on gas just driving from one side of the state to the other side of the state, and you got to come back for work. So it's a completely different animal. Getting to all of the different counties, dealing with all of the different committees, dealing with all of the different personalities, all doing this while you're giving your speeches, while you're raising your money, doing all of these kinds of events. Think of it as running a business.
Yeah.
Right. It's one thing to have a Subway franchise. It's another thing to have 10.
Right. I'm gonna cover more area. Now, back in the day, we were talking about running third party, and and one of the things you expressed to me was about how nonsensical, in a way, if I'm okay to use that word. Can you please explain that dynamic to me? Why third party will never win in America?
Well, primarily third parties will not win in the United States because the United States is specifically designed for a duopoly. The manner in which the Electoral College functions is specifically set up to eliminate third parties. Okay, which is why you see whenever there was a third party in American history, they didn't last long, or they took over where the other party was, right? So you'll see the Federalist Party dies, and then the Whig Party replaces them, and then the Whig Party dies, and the Republican Party replaces them. Or they're parties that just don't kick off ever. Like the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, who can get a mayor every now and then. I think they got a governor a little while ago, but by and large, they're really not going to be able to exercise any power, because one, everyone hates them because they suck up money and votes.
Right.
So you're starting off with less connections, with less resources, with less volunteers. So it's already harder to get in the front door. And secondly, if you're running third party and you do get a plurality of the votes in your state, let's say you win the state of Pennsylvania, you have no backup in the state Congress. So they can still vote a Republican in there if they wanted to. They can still put a Democrat in there if they wanted to. Just because the Libertarian won doesn't mean that the state Congress full of people who can't stand you because you've spent your entire career telling them to go pound sand is gonna actually put up electors that will support you. Politics is a team sport. It's a team sport. And when you go third party, you're essentially going out of your way to play for the minor leagues. It's the truth. If someone wants to be a successful third party, you can be a successful third party if you stop going national and focus on these local races that are being won by 30 votes.
Okay.
That's where a third party can make a real impact. That's where a third party can make a real difference. But as long as they're putting up national candidates, that's a grift. That's a grift because the system is specifically built for them to not be able to do anything of significance. And they know that. They know better, but they're out here fundraising anyway, when if anything, they should be organizing for all of the many, many local races. Many of them are unopposed that they could honestly pick up and make big differences on the local level. But they don't want to do that kind of work.
Okay. Kanye ran third party. He only got 60,000 votes. Have you followed his campaign or, him getting on ballots, so on and so forth? What can you teach us about the failures of his campaign or the successes of his campaign?
His first screw up was waiting so long to announce.
Okay.
Because he missed the deadline on a ton of states by the time he announced.
Right.
So he couldn't even get on the ballots. And secondly, he had no ground game prepared.
Okay.
Right. He came out and he was expecting his name recognition. This is all assuming that this was completely sincere on his part, that he really wanted to be president.
Right.
Right. Assuming that this was real and sincere. He made the mistake of thinking that his name recognition would take him somewhere relevant alone, where what he should have done was started 3 years ago, using his name recognition to get funding and to get staff, to get consultants, to set up offices. And then if he did that, he could have been a legitimate third party option if he really wanted to. That's his biggest failure. His biggest failure is that he didn't actually run for president. He didn't actually run for president, not in any real sense that like I said, he wasn't even on the ballot in every state. It's like he said he would run for president years and years ago. I don't know if you remember that. Right. He sort of just said it as a throwaway line at a concert or something. Mm-hmm. But then he waits until the fourth quarter and tries to scramble and get everything together like doing your school project the night before. You can't do that with the presidency.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because he only came out with 60K and, people were like, he does more in album sales and sneaker sales. And I think it's that duopoly you're talking about. It's just in this arena, his star power wouldn't work because I think that the left and the right did a so party of demonizing a third party vote, right? Like that's voting for the other guy, basically. And is that true? Like when they say if a vote for Kanye is a vote for Trump. Is that true? No. That's not true.
No, not in the strictest sense. A vote for Kanye is a vote for Kanye.
Right.
What people are trying to get across when they use that talking point is that we have a responsibility as voters to get the most bang for our buck. So if you live in a state like Pennsylvania, like I do, it being a crucial swing state, I could vote for someone like Kanye, and that would basically be a protest vote. You know what I mean? Because I know for a fact Kanye is not going to win the state.
Right.
Right. You just know that for a fact. He's not competitive. He wasn't even on the ballot in Pennsylvania, I don't believe. I don't remember him being on the ballot.
Okay.
So I could have wrote him in, and there's no possible way he can win the state. And so that's the end of it. But that vote for Kanye does make it more likely for either Trump or Joe Biden to win the state because I'm not putting my vote towards anything. Mathematically speaking, it's not a vote for either man, but situationally speaking, it makes the person that I dislike more likely to win because that's one less vote against them.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep. So protest vote. I like that. It's a protest vote. Very interesting. Shout out to Sketch Therapy, Mod, holding me down. Fudge Mail, $5 super chat. He said, why ain't you playing the Black National Anthem? Jordan, do you know what the Black National Anthem is?
Lift every voice and sing. Of course.
You know that, huh?
Of course. Why wouldn't I?
Did you grow up with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, like Uncle Hotep, I don't think Uncle Hotep knew it and somebody else didn't know that we had a Black National Anthem. I don't like this song.
We had to sing it in school. We had to sing it. We had to sing it. This was before I moved out of, deep Baltimore City. My mother wanted to get me the fuck out of those schools, and they ended up putting me in art academies and private schools for the rest of my run. But up until about 6 or 7 years old, I went to Baltimore, deep Baltimore City schools, where everybody was Black. And every year you have like a chorus class or something like that. You do music classes, and we always had to sing, lift every voice and sing. We didn't sing the real national anthem. We sung lift every voice and sing. Right.
Yeah. I remember, going to my grandma's church, and every year at family reunion we had to sing. Now, I didn't like it. To me, it sounds like a Negro spiritual complaining about white people with their foot on their neck. It just sounds sad.
That's what it is. It's very depressing.
Yeah, it's very depressing. Okay, I'm not alone in that, huh? Okay, I'm glad you feel that way too. Now, we're going to start to slowly switch gears to talking about Trump and the potential elections, but I have one more question before we move over there. And it's in regards to Angela Stanton, Kim Classic, I forget her name. How do you say her name? Kim Klacik, thank you. So their campaigns, they were not winners. And I'd like to know, was that a misstep on their half, or why didn't their campaign succeed?
Because those seats are not really up for grabs. There are some seats that are just not competitive. There are some seats that are so blue that normally we don't even run candidates there because it's a money pit.
What's a money pit?
As in, you're not going to get any return on your investment. All the money you spend on advertising and campaigning there is literally just pouring it in the hole because it's a sure thing. So Kim Klacik, they thought that she might have had a chance because Elijah Cummings died. And he was a legacy. People didn't even run against Elijah Cummings because that was a money pit. You're wasting your money. But since he died, they thought that, I don't even think they really thought that she could win because of how deep blue the area is. They were sort of testing the waters to see what her style of campaign would do with the Black vote. So you can see if you can move that to more competitive areas. But they ended up just dumping so much money into that dead campaign that it was kind of sad to see, because I would have never, ever allowed them to do that. Somebody should have got hit in the head for dumping that much money into Kim Klasik's campaign, knowing damn well she was going to lose. That's how grifters make money. That's how grifters, they convince people who can't win that they can, and then they bleed them dry. That happened here not too long ago. The guy tried to challenge one of the Philly states. The contractors got him for almost $700,000 for him to get like 15% of the vote.
Oh, so who got paid? And I'm not saying specifically, I'm saying like entity wise, generally speaking, when you set somebody up like a Kim Klacik, who's the one setting her up who's grifting off of her?
The people run the consultants and the contractors. They're the ones who make the money, right? So let's say you have a campaign consultant you want to run, and you hire me as a campaign consultant, and there's a victory bonus, but ultimately it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. I get paid regardless. Right? So since I get paid whether you win or lose with some sort of bonus if you do win, that means I can use that opportunity to, let's say Doe is a contractor.
Okay.
I know you're going to lose. You're paying me regardless, but I can convince you to contract with Doe, knowing that he's going to bilk you for money.
Yeah.
And what you do as a campaign is you pay me and you pay Doe by fundraising. So
Right.
you fundraising, you go, you make your promises to various lobbyists, they'll cut you a check. You go to those spaghetti dinners I was talking about, and you get a cut from the different county committees, and that money just gets funneled into the people who are doing your consulting and doing your contracting. But like guys like, let's say Sean King, they make their money taking cuts out of their 501c3. And even those, the money gets funneled right into the DNC.
How does it end up at the DNC?
Well, the easiest path is if you look at the Black Lives Matter organization. So if you go to their organizational website, and let's say you want to buy a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, if you look at the bottom of the screen in the fine print, it shows that the proceeds go to a company known as Act Blue. Act Blue is a political action committee that spreads that money to Democrat candidates. That's what it does. That's the whole role of Act Blue. So it's ironic that a black person who's upset with the way the local police is being run and how the government's running the police then goes and buys their Black Lives Matter t-shirt and their Black Lives Matter hat, and they go march, not knowing that the money they spent on the t-shirt and the hat is going to go right to the re-election campaigns of the people they don't like.
Now, it was my understanding that Act Blue was only used as a technical tool to raise the funds. I'm sure there's a fee that gets paid, but 100% of the Black Lives Matter proceeds don't go to Act Blue.
No, not 100%. Not 100%.
They just take a cut.
Right. I think they take something like $4 for every transaction, something like that.
Right. It's a percentage, like a small percentage, just like you would with any other payment processor.
Right.
And then they use that money, and that cut goes to the DNC.
Correct.
Got you. Very interesting. Now I want to come back. I had a question about the whole Kim Klacik type situation. So, like you said, the only person that actually wins is the DNC. Or, well, I would say the contractors, right? And then I guess the people that are donating to her campaign, they're just throwing their money in the money pit too.
Correct. Absolutely.
Isn't this unethical to tell somebody that they can win when you know they can't win?
It's absolutely unethical.
Wow.
100% unethical. But that's not why we do politics. Politics isn't a game of ethics, it's a game of power.
Politics is not a game. Go ahead.
It's not a game about ethics, it's about power.
Right.
And that's the realest that I can put it for you. If you're gonna play that game, that's the first thing you have to get over.
Yeah.
You're not gonna meet a whole lot of. You'll meet some good people. You'll meet some generally nice people, but that's not what the game is about. At the end of the day, this game is about seizing power and exercising power.
But Kim Klacik was going for a seat from a dead guy, right?
Elijah Cummings.
Right. So his seat wasn't up for grabs, you're saying?
It was up for grabs in that he wasn't running. Obviously, right? There was nobody in the seat because he died.
Right.
But there was another Democrat who was running for the seat, who basically inherited the seat.
So I guess the electors were the ones that said, "All right, we're going with her," like, or is it? I think what you're trying to say is that the amount of votes that it took to make Elijah Cummings hold that seat were already basically inherited by the new guy.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Wow. So
because the demographic is so on lockdown,
right,
that you're not gonna get that crossover.
Right. They're basically saying, "Hey, Elijah's gone. This is our guy." And then so all those votes that would have gone to Elijah are already accounted for this guy. He basically just walks into the seat.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So they go and they check the guy with the D next to their name and they go home.
Angela Stanton, what are you familiar with the district she ran in?
I'm not.
Okay. All right. I was wondering why her campaign, maybe it was similar to Kim K. I thought Kim K ran a great campaign, but it seems like tradition is going to override all your efforts of advertising or whatnot.
Ultimately, it's a monster that you have to go up against, and it's not unheard of for a legacy seat like Elijah Cummings' seat to switch. Yeah. It's not unheard of, but that's an uphill battle no matter what.
Right. Will we see an exodus or even a shift in the black vote taking a look at the Democratic Party, or LBJ gonna have these niggas voting Democrat for 200 years?
That's a tough question because what we are already seeing a lot of people talking about it.
Okay.
Blexit was a big nothing, but the people to get paid. But we are having situations where you're hearing it from individuals talking about it more, right? So, that's where everything starts. You're starting to see families break apart, right? So it's not a family tradition to go vote Democrat or anything like that. So I think before we see party switches, we're going to see people stop voting. We're going to see people who just quit, right? They just stop voting.
Right. So that's more likely to happen than black people vote Democrat.
Voting Republican. But what we did see is Donald Trump got a higher percentage of the black vote than any Republican since at least Richard Nixon.
Right.
So Donald Trump, the guy who's painted as the big aggressive racist, the second coming of Hitler, does better with black people than anybody else.
Yeah.
So that means the opportunity certainly is there.
Okay.
Now, the opportunity to win the black vote, that's a different story. But to get to a point where it's not a foregone conclusion, I think that's possible to happen over the next 10 years, especially with demographic shifts. Black people are going to see the betrayal.
Okay.
The betrayal is going to happen. And with immigration, with regards to immigration, with the way Hispanics are going to take over as the primary minority group to pander to. Black people are going to be left holding that bag, and they're going to get mad. And mad people vote Republican.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. So the Democrats go, all right, we don't need you niggas no more. We got the Hispanics. So Hispanics becomes the vote that they pander to, and then black people get upset because they've been dumped, and now you're saying mad people vote Republican. That's very interesting.
You're seeing it now. You're starting to see more and more black people talk about immigration.
Right.
People who didn't give a damn about immigration 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They're starting to look around. They're starting to notice, hey, we don't even run Compton anymore. The Mexicans pushed us out of Compton, and the gays pushed us out of Brooklyn.
That's so true.
They took over half of Harlem. And Hispanics don't like us.
True.
Anyone who's even before you talk about relations outside. Anyone who's been to jail tells you that when the Hispanics riot, the first people they target are the black people.
Uh-oh. That's real
Gang
talk.
wars, everything. Like there is no POC coalition. That's fake. That is not real. Hispanics and blacks don't get along any more than black people and Arabs get along, right? Because they buy the corner store and then they won't hire us, and then they call the cops on us and all that good stuff. Right. So the whole POC thing is just rhetoric. No one really believes that exists. It just hasn't gotten to the point where black people get dumped just yet.
But that is like the beginning stages of them dumping us by grouping us with POC.
And you've noticed that. Everyone's been noticing that bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. They're starting to see that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of black people who usually, I was like, yo, we were saying this 5 years ago, and you guys are just now getting hip to this POC term and how divisive it is. Yeah.
Hotep's been told you.
Word up. All right. I got a couple of questions from Fudge Mayo. I got one more question, and we're going to talk Trump. You said Blexit is a big nothing. Why do you think that it's a big nothing? What was the failure or setbacks, or was their approach wrong or something? Or was it a grift?
I wouldn't go so far as to call it a grift.
Okay.
Because I think a grift implies a lack of sincerity.
Okay.
I think a lot of the people involved with Blexit were honestly trying to get something done there. But where I think that they screwed up is I think they skipped a step.
Okay.
They skipped an important step. They tried to funnel people directly out of the Democrat Party into the Republican Party. And as you've heard me talk earlier, I am a dyed-in-the-wool Republican since day one, and I can tell you that is a mistake.
Why is that a mistake?
Just because they don't trust Democrats anymore doesn't mean they trust you.
Right.
So when I come up to you and I point out all of the millions of talking points that haven't worked for the last 20 years, such as, have you noticed that your community has been run by Democrats exclusively for the past 60 years? And that talking point has been going around since before I was born, and it doesn't convince anybody. You're not going to use that same talking point to take someone who's been voting Democrat for 40 years to change their mind, because they've heard it before.
True.
And honestly, so many people have so little faith in the system that you'll say what you say, and it sounds to them like, hey, let us ruin the community instead of them.
I got you.
So that's not the way to get at disaffected voters. You get them to sit down for a little bit, and then you come back later.
So was this the step that they skipped? I guess they maybe should have gone to people in the middle.
I think the step that they skipped was not going after the unregistered and the unaligned guys. You go after unregistered people, you go after the unaligned people, and then when you make the push for people to straight up leave the Democrat Party, you can come with results instead of plans.
Is that why there was such a big push for registration of votes this year?
There tends to be there was a push for voter registration more than anything this year, because the conventional wisdom is if there's high turnout, Democrats will win.
Okay.
Black people don't have to vote Republican. If black people stay home, Democrats lose.
If black people stay home, what?
Democrats lose. It's becoming less and less true over the years as Republicans die off, because they're old people primarily. So every year our voting base dies off a little more, and every year more immigrants are naturalized, and that's how black people are being replaced. But the conventional wisdom of the past 20, 30 years or so is for a solid national win, you need black people to show up. And black people, by and large, don't register to vote.
Right. Wow. I hope y'all learning a lot. I'm learning a lot today, man. This dude is so knowledgeable. Let me get these super chats, and we're going to talk Trump and potential outcomes. Fudge Mayo, thank you. He said, Jordan, I'm from the 610, and how you feel about the Amish voting red? Also, what's your thoughts on Lancaster riot? So Amish voting red in the Lancaster riot.
Amish voting red is actually the wildest thing that I see, because again, the traditional understanding is that they don't vote, that they're completely cut off from everything. They don't register for the draft, like they don't do any of that. They're like their own little community.
Right.
But the idea of Amish people voting red makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
Because they want to be left alone.
Yeah.
You're never going to be left alone in a Democrat run country. It's not how they operate, right? It always starts with tolerance, and it always moves to participation. And I think the Amish people have realized that. I think anyone who's paid attention to what's happening with the Little Sisters of the Poor, or what happened on the West Coast with the guy who didn't want to bake a fucking cake, are noticing they're not going to leave the Amish alone. The Amish realize they're not going to leave the Amish alone. So they're doing what they can to be left alone.
Very interesting. Any thoughts on the Lancaster riot? Are you familiar with that?
I don't know much about the Lancaster riot, honestly.
Okay. Fudge Mayo said, big KKK presence in PA. You ever have problems?
No, I have never had any problem with KKK, and I've seen them, but they stand on the corner and wave signs. They're not out here burning steaks on niggas' front porch. They're just out here being goofy.
Word.
Now, I have more problem with the Black Lives Matter guys, because they're blocking the street. At least I can. With the KKK guys, they're like cows, right? You'll miss them if you're not looking.
Oh, that's hilarious. CJ Man 212 said it's not a coalition of POC, it's a coalition of liberal progressive POC. Real talk. All right, let's talk about Trump, and then after Trump, I want to talk about sort of like pre-election, Bernie getting snubbed. I need you to explain that. I need you to explain Tulsi getting snubbed. But let's talk Trump and potential outcomes. So I guess we should start with, are the votes legit, right? A lot of people are talking about Dominion, voting rigged election, all this stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
First things first, cheating occurs in every election. Cheating, it does. Cheating occurs in every election, that in our meetings, we try to control for the cheat factor.
What's the cheat? How do people cheat?
Fraudulent vote curing. So there's a thing known as vote curing. So when they're counting ballots and they can't get it into the machine to scan right, stuff like that, they'll darken the circle or clip edges to make sure it fits in the machine.
Okay.
In some places that's allowed, in other places it's not allowed. So that's mostly where things take place. The sort of stories about, truckloads of votes just showing up out of nowhere, that's not what we're talking about, right?
Right.
As a matter of fact, just this year in the primaries, a trans person in Lehigh Valley got charges for cheating.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they do?
Right in Allentown. A person named Everett Bickford in Allentown was, according to them, what they said, they were just doing, the curing ballots, which isn't allowed there. And they got arrested. They got arraigned. They're going to court in January over this. And this happened in June. That was right here in Pennsylvania. And just the other day, Donald Trump put up, he retweeted a link to a really old article from 1994 of here in Pennsylvania where they found mass cheating, like like JFK level cheating.
What?
And the court had to throw it out. I don't have it up for me right now, but if you go to Trump's Twitter and just go back maybe a day or two, you can find it.
And what state was that?
That's here, Philadelphia.
Wow.
Philadelphia. It happened right in 1994. It's even Rob Blagojevich, who was, he's the guy who got caught up in Illinois trying to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. So he's as corrupt gets, and he'll tell you Philly is dirty. Everybody knows Philly is dirty. The Philly is dirty. The question isn't whether or not Philly is dirty. The question is it dirty enough to matter?
Right.
And that's the question people are coming out with the Dominion machines, at least here in this state, because our Secretary of State here has announced that there will be no recounts.
Really?
Yes, because the gap is too large. So right now, they don't believe that the Dominion machines have been especially compromised, and all we have on the side right now that's uncounted are the provisional ballots. We have about 10,000 of those, something like that. So the Secretary of State says, Trump, you're down by over 100,000. If we can give you 10,000 for free right now and it would still be a blowout, it's not worth recounting. That's basically what the Secretary of State is saying. That's what they said yesterday when they finally announced that. That's not the same everywhere, because it's on record that the Dominion voting machines did screw up in I want to say it was Michigan, where they took 6,000 votes from Trump and gave it to Biden. Dominion, the company, says that was human error, not their machines.
Wow.
But their machines, as the more people look into the machines, the more suspect things are coming out about the machines. Primarily the fact that years and years ago, a professor in Princeton said that anyone who knows computer programming could take over this machine with 7 minutes and a screwdriver. Those are his words. The security is so low, the security is so bad on the machine that 7 minutes and a screwdriver is all you would need to upload malware that could shift the election. We don't know if that happened, but the fact that it can happen and the fact that is buzzing in the media right now has a lot of people questioning the situation. And I think we spoke about this earlier today. Donald Trump posted a video from a congressional hearing where one of the guys who spoke, who it's like a small 8-second clip that you guys could check out. A guy who works for Dominion is talking about how parts of his device, parts of their machine are made in China.
Right.
He just put that up without comment. That made me laugh. And when they're doing vote count, the vote count goes to the server in Germany. So for something that's this insecure to be operating with a server in Germany using Chinese technology with no security, it's raising questions, right? So all of that on top of human error, and it's been used in 67 counties across the country. Who knows how screwed up things could be.
Whoa. Okay. 7 minutes with a screwdriver and programming knowledge. Human error, Chinese parts, and the servers in Germany. Oh,
correct.
My God. What the hell? That's wild. All right. Let's talk mail-in ballots. I want to talk about, I guess, the history of mail-in ballots and, currently mail-in ballots and how they could have modified the election. Are you familiar with that practice? And is this new or unprecedented?
Mail-in ballots have always been a thing. Like absentee ballots have always been a thing.
Right.
They've always been a thing. But the The problem with mail-in ballots this particular year is one that we're dealing with more than we've ever had to. Right. So that alone creates a problem.
A higher volume of mail-in votes as opposed to other years.
Right. Right. So again, compare it to a business, right? Now take your normal lunch rush at McDonald's and multiply it by 10. Things are going to go crazy.
Right.
There's no way to properly prepare for that. And then, of course, we have weird laws here in Pennsylvania where if it is postmarked by the 3rd and it gets here by the 5th, it'll get counted.
Okay.
So that's why the counting really hasn't started, because they were still getting them in the mail. And then we have, the weird situations where, someone will get a mail-in ballot but deliver it by hand. And then that goes into the provisional ballot pile or something like that, or they fill out an absentee ballot, but they change their mind and then they go vote in person. And then there's a whole bunch of rigmarole that has to go with, counting their provisional ballot, but not counting the absentee ballot. So there's so much room for screwing up and so much extra room for human error when we're dealing with so many steps in between the voter and the machine.
Right. There's some people saying, oh, dead people are voting, and is that true? Is that rumor true?
All right, fun fact, the meme of dead people voting started in 1960. That's where the meme comes from, because that's how JFK won. JFK cheated. JFK, like this is I don't think anybody denies that JFK cheated. He absolutely cheated, and Richard Nixon let him get away with it for the good of the country, because this is the middle of the Cold War. The last thing we needed was that. Okay. Right? But that has been a reoccurring theme, the idea of dead people voting in Democrat run areas. Has been a reoccurring meme ever since then. Does it happen? Of course it happens. It absolutely happens. But does it happen enough to matter? Usually not. Does it happen as much as people say? Usually not. Usually the issue is they don't purge the voter roll enough, so they have old names on there. Or, again, human error. Who's working the polls? The 70-year-old lady you go to church with is working the polls, who can barely see, who got Alzheimer's. So when you show up to vote, you end up signing your name on the wrong slot or something like that, and it looks like a dead person vote. Yeah. Like it's more of that kind of stuff than it is, smoke-filled room. That's not that kind of, Yeah.
They got the mail-in ballots. I didn't ask for no mail-in ballot. They sent one to my house. Is that a common practice?
That's not common. No, that's not common.
That's new.
That's what's new. Yes. Normally you have, like with the absentee ballot, you call and you tell them you want one.
Right.
They just don't show. Because I didn't get a mail-in ballot.
Really? Oh, no, well, because they know you're Republican.
Well, so's my wife. My wife got one, but she called and asked for one.
Oh, but she called and asked for one. Right.
But that's not how it worked everywhere in the state, right? Some places in the state, they basically did ballot farming, where they just made sure everyone got a mail-in ballot, whether they asked for it or not.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And the legality of that is a little gray, and it's really hard to talk about election law because everyone's rules are different.
Every state.
Not just every state's rules are different, but the counties all run things differently. And not just the counties are running things differently, the wards are all running things differently. Right? There are so many different levels of rule changes and personnel changes that it's damn near impossible to really keep track of it all.
Is that done on purpose to keep confusion? Potentially?
No.
Okay.
No, that's not why it's done.
Okay.
It's done on purpose primarily as a principle of federalism. Election law is one of the few things that is still federalist in this country. When I say federalist, I mean each level of government has their specific job that they deal with. And at different levels, people have, different responsibilities. So when you get to something like specific election laws, that's just up to the state. That's a state power. The federal government has no business in that.
Okay.
So that's why the rules are different in every state.
Right.
And if certain states delineate and delegate powers to the counties, so then the counties end up doing their own thing, and it works differently everywhere.
So let's say, somebody, this is their previous address where I live, and their mail-in ballot comes to me. Technically, can I fill that in and mail it out for them?
If somebody else's mail-in ballot comes to you, then you could technically mail in their ballot, yes. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. There's likely a process to try to authenticate the ballot. I don't know it. There probably is one, is what I'm saying. Just sort of giving the system the benefit of the doubt there. But from all of my experiences, no, there's nothing that stops you. There's nothing that would have stopped me from filling out my wife's ballot and sending it in. Nothing at all.
Well, I heard this dude talk. I believe it was on InfoWars, and he was talking about a watermark, some sort of digital watermark on all the ballots. Did you hear about that?
No.
Said there's some sort of QR code or QF code or something like that, where all the ballots are watermarked, so they know where all the ballots are, and so on and so forth. I'll send you a link, and you can kind of just, later on we can you just tell me how valid or real that potential is. But do you think there's some potential to watermark all the ballots across the nation before they go out, or does each state handle each mail-in of the ballots, or production of the ballots, I should say?
I think it's very possible. It's very possible to have the paper
right
that the ballots are printed on, with the universal sort of format. Okay. But because you're not even going to have the same names on the ballot in every state, you have to remember that.
Right.
So we can only make them so uniform.
Right.
And you're not using the same machines and software in every state. Right. So again, you can only be so uniform. So there's a hard limit to just how strict and just how uniform things can be for the purpose of auditing.
Shouldn't these votes be verified with some sort of ID and to create some sort of authenticity behind every vote, or is that not the way to do things?
As far as authenticating the vote, the only step that I'm aware of is checking your signature.
Right.
That's when you go in to vote. When you go in to vote, if you have, depending on what state, here in Pennsylvania, if you have a registration card, you don't need an ID.
Okay.
So theoretically, I could take voter registration cards from myself and a bunch of other guys and go vote in different areas multiple times if I'm good enough at doing their signature. Nothing to stop me from doing that. Nothing at all can stop me from doing that. As far as making like fake ballots, like fully fake ballots, I don't think I'd be able to do that, because that would be like trying to put a counterfeit dollar inside of a vending machine.
Right.
Like the machine is not going to scan that properly.
Right. Haram Life just had a question. Where did it go? He said, why is voter ID considered racist?
Don't you know niggas are too dumb to get IDs?
Niggas in the hood got ID, bro.
Yeah, they do. But that's what they say. That's the pitch. Niggas can't get IDs, or old people can't get IDs. I don't know who's buying the Henny, but apparently we can't get IDs.
We can get the alcohol, but we can't get the voter ID.
In all seriousness, the position of the left is anything that has disproportionate impact is inherently racist, right? So no matter what it is, whether it's called racist or not, if the number of people who will be affected by voter ID laws is disproportionately black, it is called racist by default when dealing with the left. Because that's what you're always going to be reading. You're going to be reading something called disproportional impact studies. Whenever they call something racist, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be attached to a disproportional impact study, not the actual letter of the law. That doesn't matter.
Disproportional impact study.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they just pull that out of their ass.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, Sketch. Thank you for moderating for me. What up, Trish? My homegirl Trish is in the chat. That's my boo. What up, Trish? Let's see. Trump, potential outcomes of these elections. What's gonna happen here? Is Trump gonna step down? Does he have to step down? Walk me through the potential cases that could happen here.
Okay, so the most likely thing to happen, all things considered, all possibilities considered, by far the most likely chain of events is that Joe Biden will be inaugurated as president on July the 20th.
Okay, that's most likely to happen.
Most likely to happen. It's not guaranteed, but that is most likely to happen. To tell you otherwise would be to lie to you.
Okay.
Or be to mislead you. All right.
Right.
Because there's a clock on this, right?
Right.
There's a clock that is set by law on this. As of December the 14th, the electors have to be verified, and the electors vote in the first week of January. I don't know which day it is off the top of my head, but it's the first week of January, and that's when the electors vote, and that's when it's done.
Right.
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 So realistically,
we
only have.
Real quick, let's just slow down for me, right? So,
all right.
Has there ever been a moment where the media has announced that someone was the winner, and then it goes to the electors, and that person actually, in fact, didn't win? Or how valid is the information we have now when compared to what will actually happen next year in January?
Have you ever seen the picture of Harry Truman holding a newspaper that says Dewey wins in a landslide?
Yeah, I think I do remember that.
There's your answer.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. All right, you got me thinking about that. All right. So there is some slim possibility that the electors decide. So what is the media announcing now when it comes to electoral votes, I guess? Okay,
so here's what the media is announcing now is the projected electors that are being elected. Because that's what we do when we vote for the popular vote. Mm-hmm. We're electing electors. Okay. So there is in every state, in the state of Pennsylvania, we have 20 electors. That's the number of senators plus the number of representatives that we have.
Right.
Right. Each political party nominates electors, and those electors vow to vote for the party candidate.
Okay.
And it's winner take all.
Right.
So when they say Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania, what they're saying is that the 20 people who vowed to vote for Joe Biden were elected to go vote. Okay. And they said that they would vote for Joe Biden, and that's why the Democrats nominated them to be electors.
Okay.
Now, do they have a legal obligation to vote for Joe Biden? No, they do not.
Okay.
No, they do not have a legal obligation to vote for Joe Biden. That's called an unfaithful elector. Mm-hmm. And that happens every time. There's usually not a whole lot of them, but usually there's one or two guys who they're elected to vote for somebody and they vote for somebody else. That happens often.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
But that's not the play people are looking at right now.
Okay. What are they looking at?
People are looking at the state legislators disregarding the popular vote altogether and putting up their own electors through votes in the state legislature, because they also technically have the right to do that.
Wait, you got to explain that. I'm a little retarded.
All right. So a moment ago, I was telling you that when we vote for president, what we're actually doing is we're voting for electors.
Right.
Right. But that is custom, and it's been custom essentially all the time. But it's not law in most states.
Right.
The actual law, the actual constitutional law, is that the state legislators appoint electors.
Okay.
So we vote, and then the state legislator appoints the electors that then go vote for the presidency. But the state legislators can, if they want to, and if they have the balls to do so, which they don't, they do not have the sack for that, can just go, you know what? We're nominating Trump electors anyway.
Okay.
Theoretically, there's nothing that can stop them from doing that. Our Democrat governor could try to stop it, but court precedent would overrule him.
Okay. Let's walk through that process, right? Well, before we get to that, is there any hope of what Trump is trying to do and the Republicans are trying to do with some of these lawsuits, I guess, is happening and, you know, challenging these election results? Is anything going to come of that? Because I heard they lost a whole bunch of these cases already.
Most of them getting thrown out.
Right.
Most of these are getting thrown out. But they're doing a really, really good job of grifting opportunities for the people out here.
What do you mean by that?
You know, people are, you know, they're donating to stop the steal kind of things like that. That's not gonna get you anywhere. That's it's right-wing Black Lives Matter. That's not where any real work is being done. Right? But they're giving money. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, right? Be careful who you give your money to.
Stop the steal is a grift.
Oh yeah, it's a grift. You should know it's a grift when the dude running it is a convicted felon. But we're not gonna have that conversation.
Oh shit! All right, makes sense. All right, so we walked through that part. Now, what happens as far as, I guess, is there some sort of appeal that can happen in the Supreme Court or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, there is. All right.
There are all kinds of things that can happen with the Supreme Court. This is something else that I was talking to you about not too long ago. Political reality in America is that when it comes down to it, the Supreme Court can do whatever the fuck it feels like it. on paper, the Supreme Court has very strict jobs, but the result of Marbury versus Madison, they can do whatever they want. They can make up rights out of the blue. If you can do that, you can do whatever you want.
Right. Right.
And with the 1994 story, there is precedent for courts throwing out votes. So let's say that the Trump administration is in fact able to show that that there was like a widespread issue with these Dominion machines and that vote is illegitimate. Well, that would either A, create the political capital for the state legislators to just do their thing that I was talking about a little while ago, or they could try to get the judges to throw out votes, have a revote, things like that.
A revote by the electors.
Huh? Or yeah.
Right.
Or even a revote by the people could be scheduled.
Really?
That.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Now, if it was scheduled, it would be challenged in court because the Constitution does specify when election place is supposed to take place.
Okay.
Right. So all of this stuff can end up in the Supreme Court, and the money is, if anything ends up in the Supreme Court, Joe Biden will lose because Clarence Thomas has a bone to pick with Joe Biden.
And we just got that white chick. What's her name? Amy Comey Barrett or something like that?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And we just got her too. Oh. So if this goes in Supreme Court, there's a very strong chance that Trump will remain.
Yes. I think if this goes to the Supreme Court, that means like getting it to the Supreme Court is the hard part.
What needs to happen to get it to the Supreme Court?
They're going to go through appeals.
Okay.
So they have to. So of the fucking like 50 lawsuits that they're filing, one of them has to actually be accepted as a lawsuit.
Okay.
Then they got to go through the suit. They have to get a ruling. They have to go to circuit court, get a ruling, and appeal it again, and then it goes to the Supreme Court.
And then the Supreme Court can just basically make up whatever they want and say, hey, look, we don't like what's happening. Trump's president, go home.
If they really felt like it, they could. Wow. Now, would they do that? Probably not. That's why, I try to keep that asterisk there, that the potential that they can do this thing doesn't mean they're going to, because those precedents do matter, and you don't want to open a can of worms like that. You can't undo that.
Right.
I mean, people are still mad about Bush versus Gore.
Right.
And Bush versus Gore was over 500 votes in one county.
and run us through that history real fast for the people that are not familiar.
So Bush versus Gore was, like I said, it was close. George Bush won Florida by about 500 votes. And Gore won a recount after recount after recount after recount. He would not accept that he lost. And it got to the point where there were votes that he didn't want counted, and that went to the Supreme Court. And they basically said, no, you lost. You're not getting, because they spent millions of dollars on recounts. Right. Just in that gap of time between election day and like the middle of December when he finally conceded, like there was millions of dollars spent on these recounts. And what the Supreme Court did was actually just come in and say, no, it's over, you lost. And I believe that like years down the line, another count showed that Gore should have won or something like that. Okay. And that pissed people off. Take that part with a grain of salt. Right. But I know that in the very beginning, they did like 8 recounts and George Bush won in every single one of them. Wow. And that's the history of Bush versus Gore. The Supreme Court was basically telling Gore to go sit down somewhere and take his L.
What has to happen for Trump to win? The Supreme Court thing?
Well, either the Supreme Court, some sort of, Hail Mary miracle in the Supreme Court, or for state legislators to sack up and say, you know what, we don't care. Fuck it. We got power, let's use it. Fuck it.
Right.
But once again, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So once you do that, that's the world we got to live in now.
Right. Don't want to be the one to set that precedent.
Correct.
Does Trump have to step down? Or because from my, brief research, very, very brief research, I heard he doesn't have to step down technically. He doesn't have to concede his presidency. Is that true or not?
No, you don't have to concede. No, he doesn't have any, like, conceding is just you recognizing that you lost, right? That's
Okay.
that's the good game, guys, you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, throwing in the towel, that kind of thing. That's what conceding is.
Okay.
It's just admitting defeat. What Trump does have to do is, if Joe Biden is inaugurated on January the 20th, he needs to go move and live somewhere else. He does have to do that, but he doesn't have to do any sort of formal, you know, concession speech. Mike Pence does, though.
Mike Pence has to.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
The vice president, as president of the Senate, gets to announce the winners.
Gotcha.
So that's just part of his role as vice president, to announce who won formally.
Okay.
So a lot of times the current vice president has to sit right next to who beat them and announce that they won.
So
But
Trump,
that's just a little fun fact about the vice president. But Donald Trump doesn't owe anything to Joe Biden. All he has to do is go home.
right. Got you. Okay, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. All right, so what I read actually does make sense now. Okay, I was just interpreting it as something different, and I'm glad you clarified that. Million MAGA March is happening now. How important is that for Trump's case to stay president? You know, the appeal in the courts, Supreme Court, and all of that. Does this help?
We already talking about 2024, baby. That's what this is about.
Okay.
We already getting ready for midterms in 2024. That's at least down here on the ground, right? Down here on the ground, we're already talking about midterms, and the kind of energy we're seeing at Million MAGA March. You're wondering if you're going to be able to bring that heat again in 2024.
Right.
But as for what good is it right now? What good is any other march? You just you show numbers, you show people that you're out, and they're out there. They're really out there. Like they're really out there. But at the end of the day, the people benefiting from that are the people who are grifting. They're the people who make money off of this kind of stuff. The people out there selling merch. You know what I mean?
It's good grifting grounds.
Oh yeah, it's the playoffs. That's the playoffs, baby. If you want to grift on MAGA and you not in DC right now, you slacking.
Yo, cause I saw the grifters arguing, right? Like, I'm not gonna name no names, right? But today was the official Million MAGA March. And then another set of grifters was like, oh, we're not supporting that. That's the fake march. The real march is on Sunday. And I saw that. I'm like, come on, son. Yeah, Jay Hotz, shout out to Brody. Jay Hotz is out there representing. Jay Hotz is an admitted grifter. And he is out there in DC getting his grift on. Yeah, you got to be out there. Oh my God. You said it's the grifting playoffs, huh?
Yep. Griftapalooza.
Griftapalooza. So for the people who aren't there for the grift, who are really supporting, this is really like false hope for them, huh?
I hate to break it to you guys. The marching is not going to get it done.
It's not going to get it done.
It's not going to get it done.
Just looks good.
A riot might get it done, honestly. There's a reason to love riots, because, you know, You could scare somebody and get shit done with a riot. We're too peaceful on the right. They just gonna wait for us to go home and go about their fucking business.
Right. Word.
That's not gonna get it done. What it'll do is it'll show Donald Trump that his following is strong enough that he could probably come back in 2024. If it could, show different legislators across the country, give them some balls, you know what I mean, or revivify them.
Right.
So it's not completely a hopeless thing to do. All right. I don't want to come across like that.
Right.
Showing up in your numbers and showing out strong like that sends a lot of messages. And those messages that it sends, that energy that it brings, that is all very helpful in elections. It's not very helpful after you already lost.
Right.
At least not officially lost, but
right.
Most people are already moving on.
So what do you see? Do you think Trump would come back in 2024 and run again?
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah. I mean, his support ain't going nowhere. And
if you're Donald Trump and you just got the second most votes of any candidate in history, and they're so dedicated to you, they're coming from all over the country to march on Washington, D.C., why on planet Earth would you not run again?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another reason people think that this is fraud. People think it's fraud because nobody believes that Joe Biden is the most popular presidential candidate to ever run ever.
Right.
Because he's got more. If you would have told me in August that Joe Biden was going to get millions and millions of more votes than Barack Obama at his prime, I'd have called you fucking nuts. Cheating or no cheating, there's no amount of cheating in the world that's going to get Joe Biden those kinds of votes. That don't pass the sniff test for a lot of people.
Yeah. Damn. So remember I said I wanted to talk about primaries and how that worked because I'm very ignorant to how that stuff.
Okay.
Bernie Sanders got snubbed by the DNC. True or false? Or is there more nuance to it than just a true or false thing?
Bernie Sanders did not get cheated.
Okay, he did not get cheated. Okay,
he didn't get cheated. That's just that. Yeah, you could flat out say he wasn't treated well.
Okay.
I'll say that he wasn't treated well, but that's also kind of what happens when you go your whole political career going out of your way not to be a Democrat until you want to run for president, and now you want to be down. Of course, they're not treating him well.
Right.
What part of the game is that? Where else can you get away with that?
Yeah, it's like saying you don't want to be down with the Hotep, but as soon as this opportunity pop up, be like, yo, I'm Hotep now.
Right. We don't know. No one gets away with that, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't treat him very well. They didn't really, they didn't help him out. But he lost fair and square. He didn't get the most votes. It's not like he got the most votes and they pulled some wacky shit at the DNC to make him lose anyway. That's not what happened. Okay. He lost.
Right.
He lost.
What about Tulsi, right? Like when you looked at the amount of interest from Google Trends that Tulsi had and she didn't get a chance to, like, what does it take to get somebody on a debate stage? Is that part of being in the club to get on that debate stage, or how does that work?
Getting on the debate stage is designed by your polling numbers and the money you raise. So if you didn't raise any money, or if your polling is less than 1%, they're not going to let you on the debate stage.
Okay.
At that point, you're taking up time that can go to serious candidates. That's the reasoning right there.
Okay.
And Tulsi Gabbard, she got taken out because we liked her.
Yes.
Yes. If you're a Democrat and Republicans like you, that's a kiss of death.
Oh,
That's a kiss of death. All right, who's gonna get nominated as the Republicans' favorite Democrat? Who's gonna get that?
why didn't they like that?
Huh?
Why wouldn't they like that? Because wouldn't that be like potential to steal some Republican votes?
They don't trust them.
Oh,
They don't trust them. And there was a whole bunch of stuff going around saying that she was a Russian plant, but they call everybody a Russian plant. I've been called a Russian plant. Dead ass. I've been called a Russian plant to my face.
Really? By like officials or civilians?
Civilians.
Okay.
Not like officials, you know what I mean?
Right.
But other civilians and other, other operatives from the other side have called me a Russian operative, like straight to my face before.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's weird. It wasn't even offensive. It was just weird. Like, I don't think they hire niggas in Russia. Are you blind? They're not paying me a goddamn thing. Why am I living in Harrisburg?
Yeah, right? The Russia, if Putin was paying me, I'd be living good.
Right?
Shit, I wish Putin was paying my ass.
Right?
Shit. If y'all got questions, go ahead and super chat them now, because we're gonna start to wind down. I'm gonna let Jordan go. I know he got family and shit like that, shit to do. So let's just do like an overview real quick. So we kind of went over the primaries. I'm trying to think, do I have any more questions about the primaries? So Tulsi get on the stage. She didn't have the vote. She didn't have the donations. Biden straight out won. Kamala, what do you make of Kamala? Because here's what I said. I said that Joe Biden wasn't, and I remember another question I had. Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to run, and I feel like what they want to do is they'll probably have Joe Biden step down before the 20th, so they can say they have the first woman president. How do you think that's going to go?
If Joe Biden is going to step down and make way for Kamala, they're going to do it after he's inaugurated. They'll because they don't want to make it look like that's what they did, even though that it looks exactly like I felt bad for Joe watching some of his campaign rallies. I felt bad, like, let that old man go live his life. If that's the move to have him step down for Kamala, I think they're gonna wait at least till around June, right? So it doesn't look like that was the plan all along.
Why didn't they just have Kamala run in the first place?
Because nobody fucking likes Kamala. She ran in the primary and got 0 delegates.
Oof.
0 delegates. Everybody watched in awe as Tulsi Gabbard gutted her on stage. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Yang at least got 1 delegate, I think. Nobody likes Kamala Harris, but
why?
Kamala Harris. Because, all right, so the right doesn't like Kamala Harris because she's an authoritarian socialist and just an unlikable person. And the left doesn't like Kamala Harris because she's a cop.
Yeah, Cop Mala.
Mama mass incarceration.
Yeah. Kind of goes against everything they stand for with defund the police and mass incarceration.
She's in a really weird spot because her voting record makes her it has her down as one of the most liberal senators in Congress.
Okay.
So on paper, she could be considered to the left of Bernie.
Wow.
If you're going strictly off of her voting record.
Right.
But it's her time as DA that showed that she was a psychopath. And it's some of the stuff that she was talking about on the debate stage that was raising everybody's eyebrows. Like, she was talking like governing almost completely through executive fiat and stuff like she was talking crazy shit on that debate stage.
Yeah.
But because the vice presidency is 9 times out of 10 or more, less so in this era, but for the most part, the vice presidency is a meaningless role. It's normally given as a gift to a different portion of the party, to a different faction of the party.
Okay.
So when Joe Obama gets elected, Obama was part of the left coalition of the party. They gave it to Joe Biden, who was old guard, right end of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
So now we have Joe Biden, who's supposed to be governing, or he's selling himself as a centrist, old school Democrat. They pass it off the vice presidency to Kamala, who is on the left, far left of the Democrat Party. And not just that, she's a woman of color, which is kind of a promise that Biden made at some point. I don't even know, but that was what was buzzing around all summer, right? Like, Biden is gonna ask a woman of color, and even then, everyone thought it was gonna be Stacey Abrams. No one thought it was gonna be Kamala, because nobody fucking likes Kamala.
Right. Yeah, and people were salty. So why didn't Stacey Abrams get it over Kamala?
Stacey Abrams is unlikable too.
Yeah. You're right.
And at least Kamala has won an election before.
True.
Stacey Abrams is famous for taking an L and not taking it with grace, which is it's crazy. The way that they're talking about Trump not conceding, Stacey Abrams still says she got cheated. And it's been like 3 years.
Yeah. Real talk. Oh my God. Let me catch up with these super chats. Paul Lovato, no. Haram Life, thank you. Chris Black, thank you. Fudge Mayo said PA big time blue, but 2016 went red. Also, what platforms and places to follow you and connect? Funny how Kamala got that facelift before running. I put Jordan's Twitter link in the bio, in the description box below. Y'all can just hit that and follow him on Twitter. Also, if you go to my Twitter, I've tweeted about this broadcast tonight, and you can just click on his bio. It's Heywood JP, right?
Yep.
Heywood JP. Is there anywhere else that they should connect with you?
No, that's really it.
That's
I don't got nothing to push, nothing like that. You want to, hit me up. We'll talk. I'm always around. Just hit me up. We'll talk about anything, or you can just watch me tweet about my extremely obscure politics, or we can talk fucking wrestling. I'm just a regular guy. Yeah.
Fudge Mayo said, by the way, Pelosi is related to Gavin Newsom. Is that true?
Is he?
I heard that rumor a few times.
I don't know. I can neither confirm nor deny.
All white people was related.
Ben Affleck. They're all Ben Affleck.
Yeah, right. So I had one more question. I definitely need answered. Did Trump fuck this election up? Did he make mistakes? What he did? What could he have done better? What was his mistakes?
His mistake this election was he seemed to pull back on his immigration rhetoric. He seemed to pull back on his immigration rhetoric, and he seemed to double down on trying to really sell his record, which is a good record, but trying to sell his record to minority voters, which, it's really conflicting, because as a black man, I like to see that. As a black man, I like to see, my people being reached out to by the party that I've been working with since I was like 12.
Right.
But as someone who wants to win, I'm like, that's not the move. The move is to get these mad white men out to vote. And the way you do that is immigration. And Donald Trump is the only guy I can think of who increased his coalition. His coalition became more diverse. His coalition became bigger, but he lost because of that, 5% drop in white men? That 5% drop in white men is a whole lot of votes.
Is it?
Yes. I think that's one thing people forget. Like a 10% rise in black votes and a 5% drop in white man votes is not a trade-off. but at all. We are 13% of this country.
Right.
Regionally, that can have a lot of impact, but if we're talking about the big picture here, you want to win, you're not winning without white people.
Right. Facts.
Which liberal niggas don't understand. They don't understand. So they're like itching to give away the white vote, which is itching to give away the election. And at least when we're talking about white people who don't hate themselves.
Right.
But that's what Trump did. That's where I think Trump fucked up. He spent too much time listening to Jared Kushner, Ivanka's husband, who should have been fired years ago. He spent more time listening to him and listening to his sort of plan, and that backfired. He really should have been doubling down on the base. He kind of took the base for granted. And which was a gambit because Trump's base is extremely loyal.
Right.
Like that, we don't even see that kind of loyalty in modern politics. Like there are people who voted for Trump that after Trump is gone, it's going to be hard to get them to vote for anybody.
Right.
Because they're Trumpers, you know what I mean?
Right.
Even Trumpism without Trump isn't enough for them. So it's going to be hard. That's going to be hard work. But that's where Trump fucked up. Trump fucked up by pulling back on his immigration rhetoric and losing white voters.
What about Kushner? What made him fireable? Why'd you allude to that?
Jared Kushner has been one of Trump's senior advisors since the very beginning. And the reason that we really should have, well, not us, the reason that he should have fired Kushner very early on is because his priorities were fucked up. So for instance, we could talk about criminal justice reform.
Right.
I'm a supporter of criminal justice reform, but the amount of time that was spent getting it done in exchange for none of the credit is a lot of time and energy that should have been spent on something that would give a return on investment. You're a businessman. You understand. Time is money.
Yeah.
And Jared wasted a whole lot of money as far as wasting time, because only Donald Trump can sign a criminal reform bill and spend 4 years letting niggas out of prison and still get called a racist. Running against the guy who wrote the crime bill. And Donald Trump tried to put that in, his packaging. He tried to push that fact really hard. He's the one who put y'all in jail. I'm the one who's been letting y'all out. But that didn't work. Niggas didn't want to hear it. And everyone knew niggas really didn't want to hear it. It wasn't going to convert into votes. So he should have been, all that speaking time, all of that policy making time, all of that investment would have been better served in immigration.
All right. You got my brain working here. I've heard black liberals say that the First Step Act was already in motion before Trump got in office, and he basically inherited that plan and took credit for something that Democrats put together. Is that true?
That's true and false. It's true in that a Democrat wrote the bill. Okay. But all bills are written by, somebody who's in Congress. Okay.
Right.
Also, fun fact, most congressmen do not write their own bills.
Who writes them?
Lobbyists, companies. You could write a bill if you want to.
Okay.
And I could write a bill, but only a congressman can introduce a bill.
Right.
So, the idea that, your congressman is like Thomas Jefferson sitting at a desk typing up a bill, that's not real life.
Right.
There are people who get paid for that. Staffers who work in this staff will write bills, or they'll get copies of preliminary bills from lobbyists and corporations and stuff like that. And then they move forward from there. But Cory Booker is the one who introduced the First Step Act.
Okay.
Before, right? But the reality of the First Step Act is without Trump, it doesn't happen. It didn't have that much support in the Congress. Without Trump, Cocaine Mitch wasn't giving that shit a vote.
Interesting.
Right? So, again, politics is a team sport. You could pass all at once in the House, and if Mitch McConnell put it at the bottom of his stack in his desk, guess what that means? Nothing. Unless he gets a call from Donald Trump like, hey, I want to make this deal. Now something can happen.
Right. So the Cory Booker drew up the bill. Do you remember what year it was?
No.
Okay.
Not on the top of my head.
All right. Do you know if it was pre-Trump or post-Trump?
That the bill was written and introduced?
Yeah.
Pre-Trump.
Pre-Trump.
That's pre-Trump. Yeah.
So basically what you're telling me is Obama had a chance to make this thing happen and didn't.
That would be unfair.
That'd be unfair. Okay.
That would be unfair. Because it's not like it was passed in Congress and just sitting on Obama's desk waiting to be signed.
I see what
That's
you're saying.
not right. So when it was introduced into Congress, so it was going through committee hearings, it was going through debate, it was getting amended and switched up, but there was no passed bill on Obama's desk.
Right.
That was just sitting. And no, that didn't happen. Like it didn't even get to a vote until after Trump was already president. But the process of something becoming law is a long, long process. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that was already in practice before any of this happened. Okay. And the First Step Act was not only passed by a Republican president, but at the time both houses of Congress were Republican. So it's not even like it was done off of the backs primarily of Democrats, even though it was a Democrat who introduced the bill to Congress. He did it he got it done with Republican support.
Got you. Looks like it was introduced to the House in 2018. So somebody said
the present version or
the present version.
Okay.
By Rep. Doug Collins. So a Republican actually introduced it to the House, and it says here May 23rd, 2018. It was received by the Senate. May 7th, it was introduced by Doug Collins. Now, when it was actually written, I don't know.
I distinctly remember that being like Cory Booker, like Cole sponsoring that was like Cory Booker's big crowning achievement.
Right.
That's your man's, right? New Jersey?
Yeah.
That was your boy.
That's not my boy, though. Chill with that. Yeah, his name is here. Yeah, hold on. Support, Cory Booker. Yeah, First Step Senate. So, all right. So they drew it up, and what you're saying is, if Trump was a complete racist, he had the ability to say, "No, I ain't letting these niggas out of jail."
Right. It's called veto power. Right. Nothing becomes law without the president's signature unless you have 2/3 of Congress to overrule the president, which they did not have.
So it went through Congress, and then it lands on Trump's desk, and Trump goes, "All right, good idea. Boom, let's sign it."
Correct.
But you're saying Kushner just spent too much time on it.
Yeah. Like as an advisor, he spent too much time on that.
Right. And should have just focused on immigration, build the wall rhetoric, which got him.
That's what got him where, he needed to. That's something he should have checked off his box early.
Right.
Like that should have been first step because so many people, even in his base, were mad that the tax cut came first. That was his bread and butter. His bread and butter was the wall, cut taxes.
Right.
But he cut taxes and then he lost Congress. And then the wall was pretty much fucked. A lot of wall has been built, but it's not the kind of shit he was talking about.
Right.
Right. So that really should have been the first thing that he did.
Fudge Mayo said, foreign affairs with China. What are your thoughts on foreign affairs with China? Trump handled that well, or?
Trump has handled China better than anybody in modern history. Not since Nixon has anyone handled China as well as Trump did. It's straight like that. China has punked every president in my lifetime. because America has a really weird symbiotic relationship with China. It's codependency, right? We have a weird codependency where, you know, if they don't buy up our debt, we're in trouble, and if they don't buy our debt, they're in trouble, because all of a sudden, like, because it's two ways, right?
It's a good investment for them,
right?
Yeah. And
what else are they gonna do with their almost worthless money besides buy? Oh, you know what they're doing with their money? They're invading Africa.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with their money. But you know that it as far as, you know, getting tougher on China and the South China Sea, because they have this weird habit of just claiming shit for themselves.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that it's so funny about these big, you know, autocratic countries that they like to compare Trump to. Like, just in the last 10 years, both China and Russia have gotten in the news because they just rolled up and claimed some stuff with no war. They just said, this is mine now, and the rest of the world just went with it. When is Trump going to do that? When are we going to invade Canada?
This is ours now.
Right. But the trade war with China, we won it.
Yeah.
We won the trade war with China. That's crazy. That's the biggest thing that happened since Nixon opened up relations with them.
Yeah.
And that's something Trump is never going to get credit for.
Nah, he's not.
The same way Nixon doesn't get credit on everything he did. He was a very good president, but his scandal overshadowed his whole career.
Really?
And no one all people remember about Nixon is Watergate and the, quote, Southern strategy.
Right.
Nobody remembers relations with China. Nobody remembers ending the Vietnam War. Nobody remembers his own work on civil rights. Nobody remembers his changing from the gold standard to the Federal Reserve. Nobody remembers him starting the drug war. Like, no one talks about any of that.
Yeah, real talk. He definitely did start the drug war. What was that called? That
Public Enemy #1.
Yeah, that too. But it had another name.
You're talking about the like Reefer Madness, like that, like that propaganda film? What
No, it had not Rockefeller Laws. Rockefeller Laws was under I want to say another president. I can't remember. Nixon, his drug war was called something else.
The name escapes me.
It's escaping me too. I was talking to this. He also had the Contra, Nicaragua Contra.
That was Reagan. That was Reagan.
That was Reagan.
Iran Contra was Reagan.
Iran Contra, right. No, Nicaragua was under Nixon. No? It was a
But Noriega in them? That was Nicaragua. Noriega in them was Nicaragua, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think that was Nixon.
Oh, okay.
It might be. I feel like that was Bush Senior. That might have been Daddy Bush.
I'm trying to think of the RICO. Thank you, the RICO law.
Okay. Oh, okay. To go after the mobs.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
RICO law.
Okay.
Thank you. The Green Henry Show. Yes, RICO laws. That was under Nixon, right? I want to say that was under Nixon.
Either him or Kennedy. It was either him or Kennedy.
Yep.
Both Nixon
No, it was
Kennedy.
Nixon. No, it was Nixon. Yep. Signed into law by Richard M. Nixon. Yeah, the fucking RICO law, anti-mob bill. Yeah, he did that too. Yeah. Somebody said Panama. Cassius Camp said YouTube didn't notify. You know YouTube not gonna notify you. They ain't gonna let you know when the Hoteps go live. Y'all better hit that bell and put, turn them notifications on. Jordan, is there anything, because they always say you don't know what you don't know. Is there anything that I should have asked you or we should have talked about that we didn't cover tonight, or Did I do a good job?
I think you did great. I think you did really good, and thank you for having me. This was really fun. And if I could tell anybody anything about politics, it's just do your reading, do your Googles, and go out of your way to read the same story from different outlets.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad to have you. You know, we were in the Hotep chat, and we were talking, all the original members, and trying to find what you said. You had this long. We were talking about Trump possibly conceding, and then you started explaining it. You had a long paragraph, and I'm like, man, I need to just bring this brother on the show so he can educate people. I ain't doing Saturday night. Let me bring him on, educate these folks on what's actually happening, has happened, and will happen, so people can get the real for real and not the grift. Because you know the grift is going to get you hope, right? And that's cool for what it's worth, but the education is really what I wanted the people to have, and I knew you had that. So
happy dog. This has been one of my favorite hobbies, you know.
Word.
Like Bobby Smurder's been selling crack since like the 5th grade. I've been doing this. I've been reading newspapers and watching presidential debates and shit since like the 5th
grade. You like when Bane said he was born in the darkness, you was born in this.
Yes.
Was that through like your dad or something like that, or?
No, it was my mother.
Your mom, okay.
My mother worked for the court in Baltimore, and she still works for the courts in Baltimore. So through my mother, I got to meet people like Martin O'Malley, his wife, Judge O'Malley. Martin O'Malley he was the governor of Maryland, and before that, he was the mayor of Baltimore.
Okay.
So I got to meet guys like him very young, and I got to meet judges very young, and I got to learn about the legal system very young. And through that, I learned to dislike Democrats. So I betrayed my mother, and I've been, you know.
Wait, your mom was a Democrat?
Mm-hmm. My father was a Republican. My mother's always been a Democrat.
How'd you end up a Republican then? Like, how did you end up hating Democrats? Well, how'd that happen? Just seeing it with your own common sense, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just reading about it. Just reading, and you know, I'd argue with my mother, like, how can you support this? You know, look at this. They're a bunch of bitches. They want the terrorists to win. You know, all that good stuff. Yeah. You know, this is right after 9/11, right? Around 2004. So I was hyped to blow some shit up.
No pun intended.
And you know, so and that's where it all started, right? And then from there it just became reading more and more. Then I got, you know, reading my Thomas Sowell, reading about Clarence Thomas, my Booker T. Washington, you know, all of that, you know, reading about the founding fathers, my James Madison, my Edmund Burke, and I just became more and more engrossed in politics over the years. And now this is what you get. You know? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these people need to pay more people like you to do their work instead of these grifters. You know what I mean? Because you get this stuff a lot better than these guys do.
Well, they were paying me to do it for a while before my disability caught up with me and I had to get out the game.
Right.
Like I was saying earlier, like I did this. Like this was developing into a full-fledged career for me. But I got to for context, I'm epileptic.
Right.
I'm epileptic, and it's bad. It's not really under control. So I have seizures a lot because of that. I had to get out of the military, and I had to surrender my driver's license. And if you can't drive, you can't do this.
Right.
You know, right. I can't get that call to go get to the airport in the middle of the night. I can't do that. I can't drive to Brooklyn for the night to go do an event. Like I can't do that. So I had to get out of the game.
Right. It's the Illuminati gave that to you because they knew how dangerous he's going to be.
I want my membership card.
Oh shit! I still feel like you should at least get some sort of strategy check, some authorization check. You know what I mean? I feel like Trump's campaign could have just used your expertise even over the phone, man, because he got a lot of the wrong people around him. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
a lot of people got a lot of wrong people around you.
Word.
That's mistake number one.
Having the wrong people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of like what we were talking about in the beginning when people hiring these contractors and consultants and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
Some guys are legit. Some are just going to milk you. That's the way of the world.
Right. Fudge Mayo said, thought on Sunshine Movement and Better Back America, Build Back Better, I guess.
Oh, Build Back. See, that shit has me bugging because the Build Back, that's like the globalist catchphrase these days.
Yeah.
And that seemingly came out of nowhere. Like that happened, like they was on a conference call, and then the next day they were all saying the same slogan. Like that was weird. And yeah, I'm not a fan of the globalist snowboarders type thing that they're trying to put together. I'm not a big fan at all.
Last one here. Mickey Love said, do you think Biden will allow 11 million illegal alien citizenship?
Yes.
There's your answer.
He will at the very least do DACA again.
Right.
At the very least, that's what we're going to get from him. But especially if he gets control of Congress, then yeah, we're getting amnesty.
Oh man. Wow. And the repercussions that possible from that are what we already understand it to be, right?
Right. But as long as we got a Republican Senate, it's probably not going to happen.
You said as long as we got a Republican Senate?
If we have a Republican Senate, it's probably not going to happen because Cocaine Mitch is not going to let that shit fly.
Right. Word. Dope. Well, it's been another damn, that was my old show. Sharp conversation with Hotep Jesus. Today's guest was Jordan Heywood. Jordan, thank you for coming through. I appreciate you, homie.
Thanks for having me. God bless.
God bless, my brother. That was Jordan, y'all. Jordan Heywood. Crazy knowledgeable brother. Born and raised in this politics stuff. Man, whenever something happens in politics, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, that's the guy I go to. I'm like, Jordan, can you explain this shit to me? What the fuck is they talking about? I don't know what the hell they talking about. Explain this shit to me, man. Does this make sense? And you can tell he gives it to you straight, right? Like he's not gonna water it down and tell you what you want to hear. You know, I want to hear people like bash Obama and stuff like that. He's not going to tell you that. He's going to tell you exactly what it is. So I know I'm getting the truth and I know I'm getting something that's effective. So make sure y'all hit the link in the description box below and connect with him. This podcast will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So make sure y'all leave me a positive review. P from Runaway said he was a top 5 guest. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, crazy knowledgeable. This today's cast was super relevant. I'll be back again with more important conversations. Man, I'm trying to have the most important conversations that people aren't having. P from Runaway said he was a top 5 guest. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, crazy knowledgeable. This today's cast was super relevant. I'll be back again.